Nestled in the southeastern United States, the Cherokee tribe captivates with its rich history and unique cultural practices. Revered for their agricultural expertise, crafting skills, and spiritual connection with nature, what truly sets them apart are their enigmatic, merit-based activities. From the ancient art of stickball, a fast-paced and fiercely competitive game often dubbed the little brother of war, to the revered tradition of storytelling that weaves together history, wisdom, and values, the Cherokees' extraordinary activities have thrived for centuries. Their captivating world of mystery and resilience continues to intrigue us, inviting us to explore the depths of a culture that holds its secrets close, yet entices us to unravel the wonders that lie within. So what are the kinky details surrounding the material lives of the Cherokee tribe? How are they unique in their traditions and expertise? You will get to know this and plenty more in this video. Historical context. The Cherokee tribe's historical roots date back to pre-Columbian times when they settled in the southeastern region of the United States. The Cherokee were a sizable and powerful tribe that had originally migrated from the Great Lakes region to the southern Appalachian Mountains. They now inhabit a vast area that is split between the states of western North and South Carolina, northern Georgia, southwest Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, northern Alabama, Mississippi, and the westernmost part of Florida. The major crops grown by the farmers and hunters of the Cherokee Nation were corn, beans, and squash. Their ancestors were part of the ancient Mississippian culture, which flourished around 800 to 1600 CE. This rich heritage influenced their spiritual beliefs and practices, leading to the development of animism, a belief system that attributes spiritual essence to all living beings and natural elements. Within the Cherokee tribe, nature played a profound role in their lives. They considered the land, water, animals, and plants as sacred entities, each possessing a spirit that is interconnected with their own. This interconnectedness instilled a deep sense of responsibility toward the environment and each other. Cherokee marriages. Cherokee marriages involved the clan's grandmothers as much as the couple themselves. You couldn't get married in your own clan. A prospective suitor had to choose a young lady from a different clan. Before making such a choice, the clan leaders would normally be contacted. This straightforward Cherokee distinction served as the basis for the grand work, which governed marriage laws and penalized homicide. A Cherokee could wed into any of the clans, with the exception of the two to which his father belongs because all of them are his fathers and aunts, and the clan to which his mother belongs because all of them are his brothers and sisters. A child will always take after his mother's family. A young man would hunt a deer and deliver an offer of deer meat to the home of the girl he was interested in when he had decided which female he wanted to marry. She prepared the deer flesh and presented it to him as an engagement proposal. It was expected that if she refused the deer meat, she would also reject this suitor. Before this courtship could begin, both clans had to give their consent. Courtship among the Cherokee people was a carefully orchestrated process, balancing individual desires with communal interests. While arranged marriages were common, young men and women had opportunities to interact and develop friendships during social gatherings and community events. These interactions allowed them to assess potential suitors and understand their compatibility. During courtship, young individuals engaged in activities like storytelling, singing, and dancing to express their emotions and intentions. Elders and family members often supervised these gatherings, providing guidance and observing the couple's interactions. The process of courtship allowed them to gauge each other's character, values, and commitment to upholding tribal customs. In Cherokee society, family connections were highly valued, and the involvement of parents in the selection process was crucial. Parents played the role of wise advisors, ensuring that their children made informed choices that aligned with their cultural values. Furthermore, parental involvement in marriage was an acknowledgement of the deep-rooted interdependence that characterized Cherokee communities. Marriage was not merely a union between two individuals, but also an alliance between families and clans. Such unions fortified social bonds and fostered collaboration, which was essential for the tribe's collective well-being. Cherokee homosexuality. One woman could only be courted at a time. Even if there are several instances of polygamy in ancient society, this practice was not common. However, there was never a concept of same-sex marriage or same-sex courtships. There were also instances of same-sex cohabitation. There have been cases in the past of extended families when a man or woman would live with a married couple as long as all parties, including the clan heads, were in accord. These are the only known instances of same-sex relationships occurring in antiquity. Cherokee teenagers' legal consent age was normally 15 for ladies and 17 for guys, though this was not a rigid rule. If they decided to get married, the groom would need the consent of the clan chiefs to consummate the union. Usually, he needed the grandmother and other members of his clan's family to give their consent. The bride needed the blessing of her mother's sister, or in the event that she wasn't available, her grandmother or great-aunt. If everyone concurred, the pair may get married. Marital ceremonies revisited. The Cherokee marital ceremonies were grand affairs, enveloped in symbolism and spiritual significance. Often held in natural settings that reflected the tribe's close bond with nature, these ceremonies were led by respected elders and spiritual leaders. Rituals during the ceremony symbolized the couple's connection to the natural world and their ancestors. Through prayers, offerings, and symbolic acts like exchanging corn or clay, the couple sought blessings for a fertile and prosperous union. The entire tribe participated in the festivities, reinforcing the collective spirit and celebrating the harmony between the couple, the community, and the spirits. Clan married life. After getting married, a couple moved in with the wife's family. Her brothers and all other male relatives were normally in charge of the social and cultural development of the children, because any offspring the couple had belonged to the same clan as the mother. Instead of the father, the wife's husband's male relatives were usually the ones to teach and discipline the kids. The privilege of naming the couple's children belonged to the father's clan. One of the father's sisters, who were all grandmothers from the clan, usually handled this. A woman may divorce her husband by simply putting a deer hide outside of their home and setting his possessions on it. At that moment, he was expected to leave if he had failed to please her, been unfaithful, or brought shame to her clan. He had two options: move in with the single males of her clan or go back to his own clan. However, the Native American tribes do not often wear wedding rings in the conventional manner. As a mark of their marriage and commitment to one another for life, they have not worn rings. This is due to the fact that the tribes do not often smelt gold. Cherokee menstrual taboos. Menstruating ladies should be kept apart from the population during their moon period by staying in a residence designed specifically for this use. For the remainder of their period, they should stay there. Women should avoid men during their moon time. Stay downstream or upwind of them, never touch them or make food for them, and never participate in any community rituals. When they have finished bleeding, they should be cleansed by perspiring and getting wet before returning to the society. This does not in any way discriminate against women, quite the opposite. We do these actions because we have a great deal of respect for women and their creative abilities. Anywhere near a ritual or ceremonial, a menstrual woman's presence could make it ineffectual or result in other issues. The menstrual cycle of a woman is a sign of her creative abilities. They should exercise caution at this time due to the powerful energy they are emitting. Myths about Cherokee tribe. When the early Europeans first saw the Cherokee people, they were perplexed by the men's slow decision-making in council and trade meetings. The Europeans then discovered that the men had to go home, talk about these things with their women, and get their approval. As a result, the Cherokee had a petticoat government, which the early Europeans noted and recorded. In a traditional Cherokee household, the wife was the sole owner of the home and the children, and the husband was always expected to get her consent before making decisions affecting the family or the clan. Contrary to numerous stories perpetuated by early European settlers, Cherokee ladies were not expected to beat their husbands with sticks when they disobeyed their orders. Although it has been documented that this kind of behavior has taken place in marital conflicts, neither spousal abuse of either the husband or the wife was socially acceptable or sanctioned. When it came to their kids, clan affairs, and workers' partners in their relationship, the wife had to get her husband's consent. Wives were prohibited from obtaining a frivolous divorce from their husbands. Like other facets of Cherokee clan life, divorce frequently required the approval of the clan chiefs as well as a solid rationale on the part of the married lady. Without the consent of their clans, men were not permitted to stop a relationship or divorce their wives. However, a spouse may request the dissolution of a marriage or partnership for legitimate grounds such as incompatibility or infidelity. Taboos for pregnant Cherokee women: squirrels, speckled trout, and rabbits should not be eaten by pregnant women, and they should use salt sparingly. They shouldn't stand indoors or wear neckwear or anything else fastened around their neck. The mother should refrain from cooking for her husband for 3 months after giving birth, as well as from having any sexual relations with him. Spirituality and intimacy. In Cherokee beliefs, intimate relationships transcended the physical realm and carried spiritual significance. Engaging in intimate acts was considered a sacred act of communion and respect between the couple. By approaching intimacy with reverence, they believed they invited blessings and fertility from the spirits, strengthening the bonds of love and unity. This spiritual perspective on intimacy further deepened the couple's understanding of their interconnectedness with each other and the natural world. The act of love was seen as a reflection of universal harmony, where the couple embraced their roles as guardians of life and the continuity of the tribe's lineage. Cherokee beloved woman. The Cherokee term gigao or ajigao, which means beloved woman or war woman, is a prominent one. The honorific title was given to ladies who distinguished themselves in their communities or who bravely fought for their country. The intimate lives and marital ceremonies of the Cherokee tribe are deeply rooted in their historical context, spiritual beliefs, and sense of community. The art of courtship, parental involvement, and the selection of suitors underscored the importance of unity and harmony within the tribe. Marital ceremonies held a sacred place in Cherokee culture, celebrating the couple's connection to nature, ancestors, and the entire community. The tribe's spiritual perspective on intimacy emphasized respect and reverence, recognizing the profound interconnectedness between all living beings. Through a balance of gender roles and equality, the Cherokee people demonstrated the strength of their communities, where each member's unique contributions were valued. As the Cherokee people continue to honor their heritage and preserve their cultural traditions, they ensure that the legacy of their intimate lives and marital ceremonies endures, reflecting the enduring strength of their collective identity for generations to come.
Eskimo sexuality is very tribal, and before outside influences changed it, Eskimo customs and traditions like wife swapping and wild parties were common. To offer one's wife to a guest was an aspect of hospitality that had spiritual and practical implications, and the very somber and respected tradition of wife swapping was often accompanied by shamanistic rituals. Despite the open sexuality and frank conversations about marriage within Eskimo culture, other topics, such as those who identify as LGBTQ, have remained taboo, although not quite the disease it was thought to be during the Depression. However, ideas about gays and lesbians are changing within Eskimo communities. Keeping different tribes and unique aspects in mind, here's some general history about sex and Eskimo style. So, what are the unique and odd facts about the marital and sexual lives of Eskimos, and how their lives are deeply rooted in their abyss-structured culture? What does Eskimo means? Even the term Eskimo itself is not without its challenges. Sometimes considered to be an overgeneralization or even offensive, the term Eskimo refers to natives of Arctic regions of the North and subarctic parts of North America, Greenland, and Siberia. Eskimo is an umbrella for specific groups and tribes known as Inuits, Aleuts, Yupik, or numerous other names depending on location as well as linguistic and cultural background. Let's get started with some of the oddest and otherworldly gestures of the Eskimo culture and life. Eskimo men let their brothers have relations with their wives. Sharing of food, supplies, and other items occurred in the tight connections between men in Eskimo communities, particularly when they were out on a hunt. Men treated their friends as brothers and shared everything with them, occasionally even their wives. This practice had further ramifications. Occasionally, when a man was off hunting, his friends think they're doing his wife a favour by dropping in to ease her loneliness, according to one polar memoir. Co-marriage, a more formal agreement between two couples who swapped partners, was one way that wives may be traded. Eskimo kisses aren't really romantic gestures. You may have heard of Eskimo kisses, or even given someone that cute rub of the nose that is a sign of affection. In Eskimo communities, however, the kunik rubbing your nose on someone is a common greeting and an action that is common between family members. According to David Joanasi, an information officer of Inuit Tapiriit Kanatami, when you're an infant and a little kid, your parents and grandparents and older siblings sniff you and rub your face with their nose, which removes the sexual aspect of it entirely. This doesn't mean that a good nose rubbing can't be intimate. It is. It's just not something that is found in adult intercourse. Becoming pregnant by a man other than one's husband was no big deal. Because intercourse with another man's wife was common, it was possible that a woman would become pregnant with a child that wasn't her husband's. This wasn't shunned, however, and children could be as communal as wives. According to the memoir of one English girl who grew up among First Nations tribes in Greenland, if a woman fell pregnant by a man other than her husband in the community, there was no stigma. It wasn't like suburban wife swapping, it was a question of survival. Equally, if a couple were childless, it wasn't uncommon for another family to give them a child whom they'd love as their own to raise. Wife swapping was common Eskimos, or Inuit, used to practice wife sharing among their friends. It was the husband who decided which of his friends could share his wife. The wife had the right to refuse, but doing so risked being beaten by her husband. If the wife chose to have sex with a friend of her husband's, it was considered an insult to her husband and seen as adultery. The purpose behind wife swapping was to strengthen support between families, as engaging in sexual activities with a friend's wife not only brought pleasure, but also entailed obligations such as sharing food and services. Frequently, men would travel to nearby villages to spend time with their friends' wives. They would stay for a week, engaging in sexual relations, and then return to their primary wives. Some men would repeatedly visit their neighbours' wives, while in other cases, such repetition would never occur. Children born through this practice were communal children, and everyone in the community took care of them. There was no stigma attached to these children, such as being labelled as bastards. The tradition of wife swapping stems from the Eskimo culture of sharing everything within the community. This extended not only to food, but also included the sharing of wives. Interestingly, even children were shared. For instance, if a couple was unable to have children of their own, they would receive a child from a family with more children. Eskimo husbands preferred to share their wives with men from within their communities rather than with strangers. Often, when husbands went on hunting expeditions, their friends would visit their wives. It is no surprise that husbands took their wives with them on hunting trips as often as possible. For some wealthy Eskimos, polygamy was common. An indication of a man's affluence and ability to support many ladies was having more than one wife. Although polygamy decreased after Christianity was brought to Eskimo populations, it persisted. In Eskimo tribes, polyandry was less common, although wife swapping was nevertheless a type of practice. These relationships nevertheless featured one lady and more than one male, even though they did not live together permanently. However, some academics consider polyandry to be a sort of adultery. Marriage was informal and involved the groom wooing the bride's father. In anticipation of a marriage, a young man would join his potential bride's father in male-dominated activities like hunting for about a year. During this time, the bride and groom would begin their bedroom lives, more or less entering into a marriage. There was no ceremony, however. The families needed to approve of the relationship, which is why it was so necessary for the groom to prove himself to his bride's family. In some tribes, the groom may live with the potential bride's family for a time, only being allowed to sleep with her after he'd won their approval. Along these same lines, arranged marriages could take place, with parents in two families promising their infants in marriage to one another. Children were taught about birds and bees by example in several Eskimo tribes. Sexuality was not a taboo subject among Eskimos. The family had to live in cramped quarters or igloos where it was difficult to maintain privacy. When it came to instructing their children, the Chipi Eskimos of the Eastern Arctic were outspokenly demonstrative. From an early age, parents would show their children affection by openly kissing, stroking, and playing with them. They would even compliment their child's genitalia. Children were encouraged to discuss this with their parents throughout adolescence. Premarital intercourse was encouraged by Eskimos. When Danish explorer Peter Freuchen spent time with Eskimo groups in Greenland during the early 20th century, he wrote about his experiences and commented on the practices of young men and women. Freuchen noticed that parents didn't worry about whether or not their teenage children came home at night, but rather took it for granted that they found a vacant igloo nearby and are spending some time there, either as a couple or as members of a larger party. He went on to say, in fact, at a larger settlement, there will always be a youth people's house where young people can sleep together just for the fun of it, with no obligation outside of that certain night. Nobody takes offense at this practice, for no marriage can be a success, Eskimos believe, without sexual affinity. After each ritual the shaman performed, wives were exchanged. In Eskimo civilization, wife swapping and shamanism were intimately related. Every time a shaman conducted a seance, the men would switch wives. Shamans supported the practice, but giving a bride to an outsider was another story. When visiting an Eskimo settlement, merchants and travellers might be offered a widow or a single lady, but most young women were married as soon as they reached sexual maturity. Women could sell their services to a stranger as well. Overall, the Eskimo made arrangements to share and swap wives, but giving a wife to a stranger was much less typical. Eskimo couples gathered together for rituals where shamans led turning out the lights ceremonies, put together married couples for a romantic night in the dark as part of the shamanic ritual known as putting out the lamps. as it was called in Greenland. The shaman would wait to make contact with spirits after the Eskimos had assembled, turn out the lights to allow the married Eskimos to share a bed with a stranger, and then turn them back on when everyone had finished. Intriguingly, this was frequently intended to have a completely non-sexual effect, such as improved hunting weather, and was designed to welcome the spirits into a pleasant environment. Christian missionaries disapproved of the practice after seeing it. Same-gender attraction was something that should stay hidden, according to some Eskimo groups. Despite fairly open ideas about sexuality, masturbation, and same-gender attraction were not accepted in most Eskimo communities. According to one elder from the Naujat tribe, "We always lived in a tent or shared an igloo. It was never out in the open in my time, but that doesn't mean it didn't exist." In some tribes, there aren't even words for homosexuality or lesbian. In the Nunavut language, however, the term for lesbian relationships is two soft things rubbing against each other, while for gay men, it's two hard things rubbing against each other. Because there is a difficulty within Eskimo culture to recognize LGBTQ individuals, there have been efforts to make it more public and to push for gay rights in regions like Nunavut. It's an uphill battle, though. In 2003, a spokeswoman for the Chikiktani Inuit Association claimed, "We do not agree with same-gender marriage. This is not part of our custom. It is alien to us. As children, we knew that only men and women can make children together." She went on to say that she believed the Inuit would have to accept gay marriage just like other aspects of white culture, which would therefore negatively infringe on the traditional way of life of the Inuit. In several cases, Eskimo families engaged in infanticide. Eskimo tribes apparently sometimes committed infanticide and sometimes killed their offspring if they could not care for them in order to regulate their populations in harsh circumstances. Additionally, because men were more likely to die as adults and it was challenging to preserve the gender balance in the group, they killed females more frequently than males. The most common way that infants were killed was by suffocation, but it was also standard practice to take an infant into the woods, load her mouth with grass, and then leave her to perish. Despite the fact that information on this practice is frequently dispersed, a study has attempted to provide an authentic and thorough history of it. Conclusion. The sexual practices of the ancient Eskimos were open-minded. They undoubtedly knew how to add fun and warmth to their lives amid the tough surroundings of lengthy nights and sub-zero temps. However, compared to their forefathers, modern Inuit living is very different. Nowadays, the majority of Eskimos utilize snowmobiles rather than dog sleds and live in settlements rather than igloos. Additionally, they have accepted Christianity and either labor for pay or rely on government assistance. Their once open-minded and free-spirited sexual lifestyles are now relegated to the pages of history books. With some of the strangest facts, we have reached the end of today's head-shaking show. What is your take on the sexual practices of the Eskimo people? Do let us know in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that thumbs up. It will help us to understand our audience and allows YouTube to suggest similar videos to you. Thanks for watching. We hope to see you at the next one.